Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tom Gierke. I'm with the Chromebooks for Education team here at Google. And welcome to Education on Air. Today, we're going to be talking about virtualization options for Chromebooks. We talk to a lot of customers about Chromebooks, or a lot of schools, rather. And sometimes there's some applications, native applications, Windows applications that are a must-have. And in those cases, there are solutions for Chromebooks that can run those native applications. So today we're going to do a really quick overview of virtualization options in general for Chromebooks, and we've got Matt Bloomberg from our deployment team to give a quick overview. We have on the line, on the Hangout, we have Ericom, who makes a solution for Chromebooks. And we have Richland too, who is a school district in South Carolina that has deployed a lot of Chromebooks and has some experience using virtualization solutions, so can offer a customer perspective. So just a couple of housekeeping points. If you're watching the Hangout live, one quick tip is that we are going to be taking questions from the feed on Google+. So this video should be broadcasting live in the Google and Education feed. And if you want to go ahead and post your questions, comments, we will, after kind of doing some overviews from everyone here, we will be taking questions live. So we've heard if you want to have kind of two browser windows open, one of them you can be refreshing the Google Plus feed, because we'll also try to answer questions on that feed as well. So great. Well, without further ado, I'll throw it over to Matt Bloomberg from our enterprise deployment team. Matt?
Thanks, Tom. So yeah, as Tom said, there are several virtualization options and ways to access legacy applications in the Chrome operating system. Many of them used by large enterprises are Citrix and RDP. I think James from Ericom is going to talk a little bit about Access Now. There are several options in the Chrome Web Store that I encourage you to check out and evaluate. And again, Citrix is also another option. VNC has been deployed by several schools that want to remote control Windows machines in their environment. But you'll notice with RDP, the performance and actual experience in using these applications is much more seamless and smoother. And I'll let James talk a little bit about Access Now, and I'll be here to answer any technical questions later in the session.
Okay, hi, thanks, Matt. So my name is James Louie, and I'm a solutions architect here at Ericom, and we provide a technology called Ericom Access Now, which is based on HTML5. And with that, it works on Chromebooks, Chromeboxes, and really any modern web browser, including Google Chrome, Safari, and so forth. Basically, it takes about 5 minutes to install. It's really easy to get up and running, and all you need is a machine that has RDP enabled. So it could be a terminal server, it could be a Windows 7 workstation. It's great as a VDI deployment tool, or you could use it as an application or a desktop deployment tool off of terminal servers. We've actually talked to a lot of teachers, superintendents, IT admins in the education industries to learn how they use Chromebooks and how they've actually integrated the Chromebooks with legacy Windows applications. Some teachers have actually provided applications on Internet Explorer and published that through Access Now, so they can continue to use that on a Chromebook. Certain older websites were just originally designed for IE, and you want to maintain that legacy application because it's just there. You want to really maintain that investment and use it as much as possible, and that's just one way to use it. I've also talked to a superintendent who's actually used Chromebooks to deploy a Windows-based exam application. So they actually have a classroom where they have, let's say, 30 Chromebooks, and it's just running Access Now, deploying a Windows-based test-taking app. And so students walk in, they sit down, they have the application in front of them, they're using the Chromebooks, they're typing in their answers, and everything is stored and managed centrally. So there's nothing that's actually saved or that has to be managed on the device itself. Just really secure, really easy to use, and very easy to maintain as well, because Chromebooks, one of the major benefits is that it's so easy to use. And then other use cases are just using Chromebooks kind of as a thin client, being able to access an older Windows desktop to maybe provide training, or maybe certain staff or faculty simply have Windows applications still running on Windows desktops. And so Tommy from Richland, or Charles from Richland, is going to talk about that more in depth. But for now, I'm actually just going to switch over to my desktop to show you a quick demo. And let's turn on this screen share feature. And so this is something that you can try yourself. We have a live demo site called AN for accessnow.ericom.com, and it basically provides a few basic links for you to either launch a Windows desktop or a Windows application right off of your Chromebook. This is running off of the Amazon cloud, so you're going to get a real-time perspective of what this performance looks like. And again, super easy to use, absolutely nothing to install. Okay, so this is not something that you have to even download off of Google Play. You actually just go to a URL. That URL is going to be pointed to an Access Now service somewhere managed by your IT, and that will let you launch an application or a desktop. Now you can also visit our website. There's a lot of white papers, product manuals, and again, use cases on how you can utilize Access Now with Chromebooks. And again, this demo site is always here for you to work with. Again, sometimes it does get a little bit busy because it is a public server, so keep that in mind as you play with this. Now, one additional thing that I want to show. Now, Matt did mention Citrix. Citrix is basically a tool to let you provide access control. So this means when a fifth grader logs in, for example, they can only see applications assigned to the fifth grade class, versus when a teacher logs in, he or she will see applications or a desktop assigned to that particular teacher. And so we have a solution as well called Web Connect, and it works very similar to Citrix. Basically, it presents the user with a front end, and this being a web page is very easy to customize, and basically the user logs in. And then based on their permissions and group memberships, they'll see certain applications or desktops that are assigned to them. And then from there, it's just point and click, pops up a new tab in your Chromebook, and they're off and running. And so we have our own offering, but we actually do have access now for other connection brokers as well, including Citrix. Citrix has ways to do this, but we have one that's web only, again, which means there's absolutely nothing to download. They simply go to a URL. They can connect into a Citrix environment, into a Quest vWorkspace environment, or into a VMware View environment, which is, again, what the folks at Richland are going to be showing later today. All right, so that's the extent of this demo. And again, we do have that public demo at an.ericom.com. And I'll be around later to answer any questions. And at this point, I'll hand it back to Tom.
Great, thanks, James. That was really, really helpful. What I'll do is I'll post the link to that demo site in the Hangout feed as well. So if you can chat that to me, that'd be great. Now I'd like to hand it over to Charles from Richland 2. He's going to give kind of just a general overview of what Richland are doing with what they're doing with Chromebooks, and how Ericom's solution helps them with Chromebooks in their district. Charles?
All right, well, we're located in Columbia, South Carolina. We have approximately 26,000 students, 4,000 staff, 35 sites. And we have a multitude of different products. We've got 38,000 client devices, 15,000 of which are Google Chromebooks. And then, of course, we have Windows desktops, iPads, Android tablets. When we were looking at doing our one-to-one deployment in the district, we needed something that was affordable and sustainable. And one of the biggest issues has always been Windows laptops. They take a lot of time and effort to support. They're very expensive. So the Google Chromebook was a great choice for us. It improved the efficiency and deployment upgrades, reduced support effort with maintaining the devices. But we also need Windows applications. So We already had a VMware View deployment in one of our elementary schools, and those were using traditional Windows laptop running Windows Thin PC and the full VMware client. But we wanted to be able to bring that to the Chromebook, so we started looking for solutions and came across the Ericom Access Now client. And it allows us to bring those essential Windows applications to our Chromebook environment. So it kind of gives us the best of both worlds. We've got the Chromebook with its ease of deployment, and we're still able to do the Windows applications that we need for testing, Microsoft Office, those sorts of things. Currently, we have an oversubscription ratio on our VMware View environment. We basically have 4,000 sessions across the district that can be used by the 15,000 Chromebooks. What we find is that most users spend the majority of their time on the Chromebook using native apps, and they only jump into the VDI environment when they need a specific Windows app. So it saves cost on the back end. You don't have to have a one-to-one deployment like you would in a complete VDI environment, but you still have access to those Windows applications. That's pretty much all I have for the overview. If anyone has any specific questions.
Great. Yeah, let me look at the feed here. You know, one of the questions that we wanted to propose was just kind of in general, what are some of the key reasons that you're using a virtualization solution? And I guess I'm not sure if you can highlight that from a curriculum standpoint. What are some of the applications that were within the district that just needed to be needed to stay in play, and so you needed a virtualization solution in order to be able to utilize Chromebooks for those applications.
Yeah, so when we looked at how to bring, we have apps such as map testing, end-of-course testing. We have some websites that just have a Internet Explorer dependency because of some plugin. Of course, Shockwave, Java apps. There's a lot of even web content that just you can't do natively on the Chromebook. And we wanted to be able to provide those services. So we had a choice of either doing a RDP Citrix type deployment where you have terminal servers on the back end, or VDI. When we looked at terminal services, there's a lot of applications that don't coexist well with each other. You run into applications stepping on each other. With VDI, each session is its own desktop, so you don't have to worry about the application compatibility issues with each other. It also is a lot simpler to think about when you're used to maintaining individual desktop PCs. Each VDI session is its own PC essentially. So it was a much easier deployment for us. And there's also costs. We were an existing VMware customer, already had a View installation, so it's a lot easier for us to snap into that environment that we already had versus deploying something else. But what we're finding is more and more teachers and students are finding things they can do natively on the Chromebook versus having to get into a Windows session. And the more that happens, of course, that's better for us because we don't have to worry about having as many VDI sessions. But typically, the apps that are used the most are testing apps that are mandated by the state. Those we don't have a choice over. We have to have those, and it's nice to be able to get those apps on the Chromebook.
Great, thanks. I'm just stirring up the feed a little bit. One other topic that we wanted to ask about was just kind of question: what if someone asks, "Is virtualization secure?" School districts that are concerned about if they're going to deploy this kind of virtualization solution, is it going to be secure? So I'm not sure if James, if you want to touch on that, or maybe Matt, or the combination.
Sure, I'll jump in. Well, by nature, it is secure because everything that you're doing is in a virtual desktop, like Charles mentioned, or on a terminal server. So everything is stored on a SAN, or it's stored on a virtual machine, and it never leaves your network. So it's always inside your network, and the information that the student or teacher is looking at, it's all encrypted. It's just an encrypted website. So there's nothing sensitive that's ever downloaded. You never have to worry about potentially a list of social security numbers getting lost on your device if you happen to lose it. So it is secure both in the communication as well as how the data is stored, because everything is, again, just in your data center. You have direct access to it, and it never leaves the network.
Yeah, and that's true for Citrix, Ericom's RDP solution. Those are all using 128-bit or greater encryption, and you can do transport level encryption as well. So it's as secure as any other HTTPS connection that you're making.
Great, thanks for that. It looks like David, were you able to join? Are you muted there, or?
Yeah, sorry about that.
There you go. Yeah, no worries. Great. So we just kind of went through some basic overviews, and I think it'd be great if you can just touch on some of the ways that you're using virtualization to run Chromebooks in your school district.
Absolutely. We pretty much started the transition to move to web apps about 2 years ago, with Google Apps being the primary web app that we use. But we have a couple different applications that have been kind of hanging on in the background or have been mandated to us. The Pennsylvania Department of Education is using a program for their assessments that is Windows only, well, Windows and Mac only, that we had to find a way around if we wanted to use the Chromebooks on a large scale. So we actually used Ericom's solution to provide an RDP HTML5 client to access that application. That application and a couple Microsoft applications are pretty much the main reasons we're using it. But that's pretty much where we've been using that. It's interesting because when we did our first round of testing at the beginning of the year, we actually had less, even though it was the first time we ever used them, we actually had less issues using the Chromebooks with using the Ericom software than we did having using our previous mobile labs using an installed client on them the previous year, just because of battery life, some network issues. It was really, really nice.
Great. Yeah, I know that some schools have certain education web applications that do require the developers are currently only developing for Internet Explorer or haven't yet certified Chrome or supporting Chrome. We're definitely working towards that with some of the top developers, but virtualization would be an option for that. A quick question maybe from both of you: do you have virtualization as an option for every single Chromebook in your district, or is it just you select certain grade levels that use certain applications, or just kind of looking for some tips on your strategy there?
In Richland too, we have it open to all Chromebooks.
Hanover has it. We have it open to all of ours too, but we only pretty much use it for the testing and a couple Microsoft apps. So when it's used very heavily, but most of the times it's not used as much. But all of the Chromebooks have access to it.
Great. And then, so I guess maybe the question would come up, James, how would a solution like Ericom, how do you, not necessarily talking about cost or any of that kind of stuff, they can contact you directly for that, but just, licensing. How does that work for a district who wants, they have a few hundred Chromebooks and they want to have that option on all of them? How does that work for you guys?
Right, so we have a very flexible licensing model. There's you can do it per named, or you can do it concurrent. The concurrent usage is typically the most popular because, like David and Charles mentioned, these aren't tied to a specific Chromebook. So you can move from Chromebook to Chromebook and connect back into your apps or desktop at any time. And so by using the concurrent, you can, again, you're really just buying as many licenses that you need at any given time, and you don't need to buy for each device or each user for that matter. So. And there's different models, and you can definitely talk to us. We will work with you to find the best model and find the most cost-effective way of deploying this. We just really want to help Google's customers as well as Ericom's customers, get the most out of these Chromebooks to make them viable tools day to day.
Right. Yeah, I think there was a good question that came up. How does using virtualization affect the licensing of the applications that you are virtualizing? So does that affect the number of licenses that you would need for a certain application for a certain number of users? How would that work?
I'll answer it from a general perspective. David or Charles might be able to provide more details. The Windows application still has to be licensed according to the Windows standards. So you're going to have to buy the necessary licenses. Now there are different models for different types of software. Some are based on each user. Some are based on per device. You do have to do some planning with that, but you should never run into any conflict. And if you own a license, many times you can just reuse that license in this new virtualization environment. So you can certainly talk to us, and we'll help guide you through that process.
Yeah, as James said, many times schools and businesses will have one-to-one per employee desktop licensed software, and if they have 1,000 employees, they'll have 1,000 licenses for a particular app. And using the concurrent licensing model that Ericom is using, they actually end up saving money because they can buy, okay, at the maximum amount of time, we're only going to have 300 or 400 people using this application. They can actually cut down on the licensing that they already have, especially around a renewal, and then still have all the users have access to the applications without having to maintain that application and the updates on that desktop. So it's kind of a less work to maintain and save money on the licensing.
So one question that would come up is, how fast are these applications when you're virtualizing them? Is there any kind of degradation of speed that you would notice versus using the application natively?
We saw a pretty big speed increase, mainly because we went from the clients were installed on individual laptops that may not have been the fastest, and they basically are now on a very powerful server. So we actually saw a pretty good speed increase.
What was that, just out of curiosity, what was that application that you mentioned? I know I've heard from some districts even using things like Photoshop that are virtualized, and it ends up being pretty fast on a Chromebook.
That was the PDE assessment software.
The assessments, okay.
Yeah.
Tom, one good example is Microsoft Office. We have Microsoft Math is another application, and it's actually more of an equalizing technology because 5-year-old computers and brand new computers, Chromebooks, they run these applications at comparable performance levels. So it's not the local processing that's the limiting factor here. And we find that our old machines are providing a much better user experience than they had previously.
Yeah, one additional thought is that because our VDI deployment is backed up by SSDs, all the applications are actually launching off of an SSD. So application load times are very, very fast. So like Microsoft Word it launches much, much faster than it would off a laptop. The only area where you see an impact from being virtualized versus running natively is going to be on the graphics side, because of course the screen images have to move across the network to the Chromebook versus running locally. But as far as disk access and application load times, it's very, very fast.
And I'll just make a quick point. This is a very dynamic technology, and as browsers evolve and the networks evolve, Access Now, we're continuing to improve it. So any new advances and new features that come out with HTML5 and beyond and the browsers, we're going to do our best to take advantage of that to make the performance as best as possible.
We just got another question on the feed. I'm not sure I completely understand it, but maybe you guys can comment on it if you got it open. So the question is, what options do the clients have for handling local drives and devices? I think how would that work if you're virtualizing a device and then wanting to print from that device, or access a file.
From a Chromebook perspective, Cloud Print would enable your any Chromebook or Chrome browser to print to existing printers pretty much in any location using using the Cloud Print service. As far as I'm not sure what they're looking to get here as far as local hard drives. The Chromebook has a solid-state drive, and you can store data on that. You also can then use Google Drive to store things in the cloud, and that's natively accessible on the Chromebook as the local file system. So you kind of have both options there for transferring data and sharing between devices. And printing, again, is done through a Cloud Print service, either run on-prem, or you can get Cloud Print enabled printers and print directly to those from the Chromebooks.
Great, thanks, Matt. So another question just came up. So this is a question for the customer panel. So they're wondering, what virtualization platform do you guys use in order to integrate with Ericom? And just looking for between the different available like VMware, Microsoft, and kind of just your general experience, maybe evaluating those.
As I mentioned earlier, we're in Richland 2, we're using VMware View on the back end. We were already VMware customers. We were comfortable with the technology. We did evaluate other solutions. We evaluated Citrix, but in the end, we settled on VMware. We felt like they're the virtualization experts, so we were very, very comfortable with what they do on the server side. And it's worked really well for us.
At Hanover, we're actually just using straight Microsoft Remote Desktop without Citrix or VMware View in the middle. And it's working very well for us.
Great, thanks. I'm just going to we'll just do a last check here. Oh, okay. Yes, good. This is actually a very good question. We, from curriculum directors and coordinators that we speak with, school districts using Chromebooks, the fact that we what they find is that screencasting can sometimes be a struggle to do on Chromebooks. So wondering would screencasting be possible if you were to virtualize that type of a solution, and so then be able to use a Chromebook? Which I think it would be, just to jump in, if it's basically a website, but we see that sometimes the screencasting solutions on the web might require some type of, at least the ones available today. That's definitely something we're working towards, but may require a Java plugin. So I guess more in general, hey, I think we've already answered, but would virtualization solutions be an option if you wanted to use a website that required Java or Silverlight or one of these types of plugins?
Well, this is James. I'll point out that we can show a website that has a plugin, but whether it can have direct access to the webcam is the question. And I'm not really entirely sure about that. Maybe Matt knows if that's possible, but I would think that.
Are you talking about screencasting or webcasting? Because for recording the screens, we've tried that. We just couldn't get the audio to come through real clear if you wanted to voice over it. So we're still just using normal Windows laptops to do any sort of screencasting.
Yeah, I think the from a webcasting and screencasting perspective, I mean, obviously I think we've done both of those with Hangouts just now. But from a virtualization perspective, any way that you were able to do it before, using a virtualized solution, whether it's Ericom or Citrix or Cloud RDP, you're able to do it the same way you did it before on the Chromebook as the client, right? So you still have that same functionality from the Chromebook, just in the virtualized environment.
Now, on a similar note, if you wanted to ever join a screencast, like a GoToWebinar or WebEx, then you would use Access Now to do that. You would basically connect into a VDI desktop or terminal server to run a browser on that system that can enable those type of add-on technologies. So that's one use case.
Great. So I think we've covered a lot of the questions that have been on the feed, and definitely covered a lot of ground in the Hangout today. Is there any other topics or questions, either David, Rich, or Charles, Tommy, that you guys wanted to touch on before we end the broadcast?
I would just generally say that the solutions are working very well for us. VMware View plus Ericom Access Now. We have various clients. The Chromebook is our largest client install base, but we have iPads, Android devices, Windows clients. They all work very well for the solution, and our users are having a very positive experience, and it accomplishes our goals. So we're really happy with it.
Yeah, I'd probably just echo those comments. We actually started off just using this to kind of address some areas that we needed, access to for the Chromebooks, but we've been using it on pretty much every device that we have, just because it's a lot easier to tell somebody to go to a website than trying to install an application for them, even if it's pushing it out. It might be a little different depending on what version of Windows, or if they're using OS X or something. So just going to a website, everybody gets the same experience.
Yeah, and from a Chromebook perspective, with the control panel based management, you can deploy extensions, home pages, startup pages, and basically total configuration of the device from the cloud. So implementing solutions like Access Now or Citrix or Cloud RDP can be completely customized and seamlessly integrated into your existing environment to get launching applications, as James showed, one click to get into a legacy app, making their start page have links to these applications, using extensions to integrate them in existing web applications. The entire experience will be seamless to the end user, which I think will decrease calls to your help desk and IT teams from an IT support perspective.
And one more thing, just because we are using it for testing, we're actually able to start the application full screen right from the click, which is really nice for testing software, so that the students aren't able to go to another screen or able to use any of the other resources on the Chromebook while the testing is going on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just when you publish just an application, you only see the application and nothing else behind it, and you can really lock down that environment so students don't have access to any drives or anything in that environment, and it becomes really secure and rock solid.
Great. Well, thanks a bunch, everyone. Thank you, David Fry from Hanover Public Schools. The team from Richland too. Really valuable insights for everyone that's watching live and everyone that will watch in the future. By the way, it will be available on the Education channel on YouTube, so we will archive this if you wanted to share it out with your colleagues or your network of your professional networks with other schools. And thanks, James from Ericom, for giving us some insight and some demos on Access Now. Thanks, Matt, for answering some questions and giving kind of a broad overview of virtualization. And happy Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.